We are now live.
Thank you, Amy. Good afternoon and welcome to the August 24, 2022 City of Asheville Multimodal Transportation Commission meeting. My name is Dennis Wenzel and I'm the chair of this group. Our meetings continue to be held virtually, but there are many ways for interested parties to participate in this gathering. The City of Asheville Engagement Hub, which includes a variety of links and phone numbers, can be found on the Multimodal Transportation Commission page of the City of Asheville's website. Visiting this page is the best way for you to take part in our virtual meetings. Members, staff, and guests, please remember to keep your microphones muted at all times when you're not speaking so we can minimize feedback and other background noise. I would like to now welcome our commission members. When I call your name, please introduce yourself and let us know what interest you represent. Randy Warren.
Hi, I'm Randy Warren, and I apologize my camera isn't working today, but I'm also on the Bike Ped Task Force.
Hey, Randy. Kenny Armstrong.
Hi, Kenny Armstrong. I also sit on the City of Asheville Greenway Committee.
Hey, Kenny. Pat Katz.
Hi, I'm at large, and although my husband is an avid bicyclist, and I'm so glad we're doing a remote meeting.
Hey, Pat. John Bassoni.
John Bassoni, and I am also on the Transit Committee.
Is everything okay, Dennis?
Well, we lost me.
Yeah.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now we
Yes.
can.
All right. Sorry about that.
Now
Lost
you're being
connection.
still for a very long time.
Okay. Let's see. We were with Maggie.
Present.
Thank you. Bill Loftus.
He is in
Enjoy.
Montana fishing, having lots of fun.
Leanne Joyner.
Here.
Joe Archibald with Planning and Zoning was unable to join us today. He'll be with us next month. Elizabeth Likas.
Hi, yes, I'm the liaison from the Neighborhood Advisory Council.
Hey, Elizabeth. And Kim Rooney. Kim has a new schedule with her teaching this semester, and unfortunately will not be able to make our meetings, but she will be checking in through our video calls, so we can still communicate with her that way and always reach out to her directly. Okay, the first order of business is to review and approve today's agenda from August 24, 2022. Can I get a motion to approve?
This is Maggie.
I so move.
Oh,
I got a motion from Maggie, and can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We'll go through it. Randy Warren.
Aye.
Kenny Armstrong.
Aye.
Pat Katz.
Aye.
John Balsoni.
Aye.
Maggie Ullman.
aye.
Leanne Joyner.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion carries. Next item is to review and approve our minutes from the July 27, 2022 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Pat. And a second?
I'll make a second, Leanna.
Thank you, Leanna. Any comments or questions on the minutes? Without comment, we will move to a roll call vote. Randy Warren.
Aye.
Kenny Armstrong.
Aye.
Pat Katz.
Aye.
John Balsoni.
Aye.
Maggie Ullman.
Aye.
Leanna Joyner.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Motion carries. We were notified there was no public comment for our meeting today, so we'll move into new business. Our first order of business is the I26 project update from Ken. Hello, Ken.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Ken Putnam. I'm the director of the Transportation Department. In your package, you got an updated memo about the I26 connector project. I'll just go over some of the highlights and be able to try to answer any questions that you might have. One of the things that I'll say at the outset, you've probably heard that, well, first of all, there's a draft State Transportation Improvement Program out for review. And the first version of that document affected some of our projects in a negative way. But before the state legislature approved the budget, they were able to find some more money. So for the very first time in the history of the state of North Carolina, sales tax is now used for the highway fund. And they've got it staggered. It starts out at 2% a year, and then by the year 2025, it will be 6% a year that has to be transferred over. So that gave them extra money. So at least two of the projects that were impacted for our area are back in the document. But what I was saying about all that is the I-26 connector project was not affected by that, at least now. So it's still on its schedule. So the biggest milestone coming up ahead of us is called the Record of Decision. It's the ROD, and that is scheduled to be signed at the end of September. And the ROD is the final milestone that needs to be completed before they can move forward with detailed design, right-of-way acquisition, and then the project letting. Then I've got a schedule here for the different parts of the project. There's a I-2513A, a B, a C, and a D, and then the A has several little parts. But the one that's moving forward faster is the 2513A sections, where right-of-way is scheduled to begin as early as November of this year, and then the lettings would be November, a year from now, and then in February 2024. This project is going to be let, or this section is going to be let under the traditional letting schedules that they do. And the other three, B, C, and D, you see it's got a D/B, that's design build. Those will be let design build. As far as the I-2513AC, City Council approved a funding letter of commitment that went to the NCDOT regarding the city's betterment costs and the aesthetics treatments for that project. That was a total cost of about $660,000. That was done on May 24th, and we've already sent the letter to the DOT on that. And there'll be a more formalized agreement that we'll have to entertain and approve later on. Now, the money itself does not have to be turned into them. I think we have like a 6-year period after it goes to construction. So I'll pause there and see if there's any questions. Oh, and by the way, the aesthetic committee, they continue to meet on a monthly basis, and most of their work now is concentrated on the recommendations for I-2513B and D.
Great, thank you. Pat?
Maybe I'm a little late to the party, but I don't understand what the I-2513 represents. Is that a certain section of I-26?
That is, I mentioned the State Transportation Improvement Program, or STIP. That's the project number that's in that document, I-2513. That's the I-26 connector project.
Gotcha. Okay.
But that's a very
Thank
good
you.
question. Very good question.
Any other comments or questions? Randy?
So Ken, the $600,000 that we're contributing for, that's a match to have improvements that wouldn't normally be included in the project, correct?
That's a good way to summarize it. Yes, the betterments are things like wider sidewalks than the standard, wider transportation improvement, the multi-use transportation path or the Greenway. For example, the DOT, their standard width is 10 feet. So our betterment cost is to make them 14 feet. And so, and then sidewalks, you know, are typically 5 and so forth. And if we need a wider sidewalk like 6 or whatever, then we're paying that extra cost. And then the aesthetic treatments, they're the treatments that the aesthetics committee has recommended. So there's two different categories of treatments that we're paying for.
And are there anything that we've agreed to and are starting to pay for that's, it seems like there's always changes to these things, and sometimes we end up losing things that we thought we were going to get, and then once it's built, we're like, hey, what happened to that multi-use trail that was supposed to be here? And they say, oh, they moved the highway 12 feet, and so that lost that. Is there anything that we know of that's not being delivered that we originally thought we'd be getting?
No, and Brandy, that's a good question, but no, there's not. And when we get into the design build process of that, whoever is the successful winner of that project, they cannot make that kind of major change unless they get the approval from the DOT, and in our case, the city of Asheville as well. So those elements, like you're talking about, the example you gave, they're solid.
And then we'll have a project manager ourselves, the city, once we get those things let out too, that will be the person that monitors that to make sure that if something is looking like it's not supposed to look, they'll identify those things.
Well, we haven't really got to that point yet, officially, but yes, it wouldn't surprise me if the aesthetic committee might be that body, but city council will probably have to take action to do that. So we haven't got there yet.
And at what point do we want to make sure that happens?
Oh, I mean, we're in the process that we've already identified that as a need.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to stay at the table. That's for sure.
Yeah, I just know that sometimes, you know, when it goes to design build, the person who's doing that doesn't always have the most comprehensive view of the small things, and sometimes they get overlooked. And so we just want to make sure that we are in this the whole time. So yeah.
Well, and your concern is even more so because this project is going to go for a number of years.
Yeah.
But that's very good questions.
Yeah.
Maggie?
Right, because sometimes the people that make the commitments to these things have left, and then there are subsequent people, you know, have to pick up and they only know what they have to pick up. So
Right.
Maggie?
Maggie, you're muted.
Okay, I put my hand down. A couple folks from the aesthetics committee have chatted with me about their eagerness to ensure that we do some thoughtful planning on how the connector connects into our downtown through Haywood Road. And it sounds like they're advocating for a specific corridor plan to make sure that we have the planning strategy in place before DOT gets too far into execution. Can you speak to any of that, of like where
Yes.
that's fitting in or how that's fitting in?
Yes, I can. In fact, we already have a grant to take care of that study. What we're identifying right now is the local match that we need to add to that grant. The total amount of that will be, the grant itself is $220,000, and the local match we need to come up with is $44,000. I'm working on the local match right now, and I have a meeting set up on Monday with the budget team to see if we can identify that. We've already got the staff report written, and if all the pieces could come in, we're hoping to make the September 13th City Council meeting for the appropriate budget amendment. The DOT was at the table with us when we defined the scope of this corridor planning study, and of course we had to give and take on some of the items, because one of the things they have said very clearly is We cannot do anything that will change the actual footprint of the project itself. That decision has gone. You'd almost have to start over if we did that, so they're not going to allow that. But they were at the table. We all came to agreement on the process. There's already a group of internal city staff members in the planning department and even some from the transportation department that are having regular meetings already trying to get things lined up so that once we get this local match approved, then they can rush, I hate to use the word rush, but very quickly get it out on the street so that we can pick that consultant, whoever it's going to be.
And so as you're saying, the footprint of the project can't change. And so this will be a corridor study, which will really help plan the integration of this big highway infrastructure into our downtown heart. And some, I feel like the concern that they were having is that the footprint that DOT is planning doesn't merge into like a downtown use super well. But what I'm hearing is that like the width essentially, and then this is where I'm going to be out on a limb on technical language, for like the setback of the width that is already set in stone from DOT.
Yeah, Jessica's got her hand raised, so I want to yield to her for just a second, okay? I think she can answer your question, Maggie. Jessica, you're muted.
I think in this context, like what Ken is saying is like we can't change where the road like where the bridge crosses the river, where the road connects, like the footprint from the sense of it can't be like shifted drastically north or south or anything like that. But you know, I think there's still opportunity to talk about what does the cross section look like and the width of the actual roadway. They just don't want us to like move anything around.
Yeah, like
if that makes sense.
Street again. Yeah, got it. Okay, so this corridor study really is the ideal outcome that committee was hoping for. That's awesome. Thank you for working so quickly to be responsive, and I think their insight that we don't want two uses coming together on a razor thin margin. We want to integrate coming from the highway, welcoming folks into downtown and thinking about that thoughtfully does sound really wise. So I'm really excited that y'all have been able to hustle to pursue the match. Thanks for speaking to this. It helps fill in some gaps for me.
And Maggie, the other thing too is this study may identify some of the cross streets that could happen at a later date. Won't be part of this project at all, but it would give us the framework then for a future project that the city could pursue funding, and possibly even with the DOT. But you know, like a cross connection north and south compared to east and west, that kind of thing would be identified in this thing as well.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much, Ken. Appreciate your time as always.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to hang on for just a few more minutes. I do have some things I got to get done, but I want to hear the next presentation.
All right. All right. Okay. So next up, we have the update on Asheville Unpaved from Lucy.
Hi, everybody. This is going to be a very quick and informal presentation on Asheville Unpaved, just to give you what we've been working on in the last couple of months, I'd say. I'm going to share my screen really quick to let you know if you want the best information that's out there right now, you can go to one of our partners' web pages. Asheville Unpaved has an informational page on what Asheville Unpaved is, and also shows the maps and the locations of them. But in a nutshell, the city of Asheville became involved with natural surface trails because we have heard for many years now that people were interested in seeing natural surface trails as part of the Greenway program to create connections quicker, and also to provide more types of recreational facilities for hiking, running, and biking on natural surface trails. So we were really excited about adding that as one of the typologies of our greenways. And in the middle of that, we started talking to community members who were really interested in helping us get some of them off the ground. So early on in our planning, we identified 5 locations. Let me see if I can zoom in here. We identified 5 locations in Asheville. The majority of them are city-owned or city managed properties. One is where the French Broad River Greenway area is on Duke-owned property, but the city leases it for 99 years. One is where the Bacote Branch Greenway will go in the future, but it is near Aston Park, the YWCA, and it is in the backyard of the Asheville Middle School, which is great because we have a really active after school program there that Asheville on Bikes works with them on. So it would be a great opportunity there. Another one is, we're calling it Mountainside Park, but it's really Bowcatcher Mountain area where the Bowcatcher Greenway will go. And these will be supplementary greenways to create more of a greenway system there, or a trail system there. And then on the east side, we're in conversations with the property owners of the River Ridge Apartments, talking about the possibility of a natural surface trail along the Swannanoa River on their property, where they have a big field that they rent out for agricultural purposes. This is a great opportunity if it works out, because it will be a continuation of the Swannanoa Greenway project that we're about to build too. So it will add some length to that trail experience there. And then on the Azalea Park campus, we've got some trail potential there as well. So we've identified these things. We've spent over a year creating our agreements with our partnerships. That's, all legal mumbo jumbo, but we're getting through all of that. I'm just scrolling through the website without even thinking. So I'm going to stop for a second and just let you know that if you're ever interested in knowing more, just Google Asheville Unpaved. You'll get to this website and you can find out all you want. But to finish my explanation of where we're at right now, we have come to agreements on how we will be partnering with the types of agreements and memorandums that we'll be using. And we've found our pilot projects here that we are very excited about moving forward with. And our steps right now are we are reaching out to neighborhoods that are adjacent to these projects to show them to the neighborhoods, get their feedback, listen to any kind of comments or concerns they have. And I would say for the most part, this has been a very supported concept. The neighborhoods around these projects have been in either great support of it or tentative support. We are returning to the East End, Valley Street neighborhood, and Oakhurst neighborhood and Kenilworth neighborhoods for an additional meeting to discuss some concerns that they're having, which are that they feel that the trails might be too dense on the mountainside for their tastes, in addition to the fact that there is a lot of things happening in that regional park area. So they do kind of experience a lot of event fatigue and are concerned about more people coming into their neighborhood. So we have some plans to address some of their concerns. For example, their parking concerns. We're going to be talking about our plan more in depth with them on why we have the level of trails that we have there. And in essence, it's because there already are a lot of trails on that mountainside and there are a lot of users on that mountainside. And unfortunately, the trails that are there now have not been built correctly. So they're creating a lot of erosion problems. And there's also a lot of user conflicts. So our concept to put in a new style of trail and a new trail system that would support a lot of hiking, but also some exclusive mountain bike single tracks up there to get the mountain cyclists off the other trails. What is our plan? And so our conversation with those neighborhoods will be to see if there's a way that we can take out some of those trails without solving the problem. So if we take out too many, we won't solve the problem. People will still go in there and build more trails, right? So it is a balance, but we're continuing the conversation with them. And once we have finished our meetings with that trifecta of neighborhoods, we will start a citywide public campaign. We will have a project page at the city explaining pretty much what I just told you. And we'll have some outreach with the public to get public comment, and it will be through the form of a survey and also public meetings. And the dates are undetermined yet, but it will be late summer, early autumn is my best guess right now. And I do know that our partners are eager to start fundraising. They're not going to start fundraising until we've finished our neighborhood conversations, although they are looking at grants, and there's one that they've applied for that they needed to in order to get the grant application in by the deadline. But overall, I think things are going really well. It's a very exciting project. I think that we've received really good positive feedback from the neighborhoods, and I look forward to the citywide public engagement. So that's my update. If you have any questions. Yeah, go ahead, Kat.
This is Pat. I live in the Kenilworth neighborhood, and I would like to know how you have been reaching out to my neighborhood. Maybe I'm not connected into them well enough. If you made a presentation, or is it just through a website? How have you reached out?
Your neighborhood had their first annual meeting. It was an ice cream social, and Asheville on Bikes had a booth with our maps and gave verbal presentations to people.
And when was that? I might have been out of town. That's what I'm thinking.
It was, I'm gonna have to look back.
I believe it
It was probably about 3 weeks ago, Pat.
That sounds about right.
And it was included in the email from the Kenilworth Association as well. Leanna?
Lucy, thanks for the information. I know the Greenways Committee had the chance to review a little bit and have some conversations about Asheville Unpaved maybe a couple months ago, and that was great. I really value and appreciate that y'all are taking into consideration nearby neighbors' concerns. I work in trails too, unpaved trails, and the density was something I asked about, in particular to the intersections of trails and safety and shortcutting, because when trails are really close, they often get shortcut, and leads to the same kind of erosion that we have with poorly built trails in the first place. So I think the process will be really informative to getting to something that is functional for everybody. But reflecting on this awesome potential asset for the city, I was having some conversations with a friend recently about the bounty and overuse nightmare in some ways that is Bent Creek, particularly as it comes to human waste, which again, I think a lot about dealing in my career with the Appalachian Trail. We think a lot about, what happens when you got to go to the bathroom in the woods. And most of the time it means people don't have either ready access or the knowledge and skills to do so safely and well. And I guess I'm just thinking about what thought, if any, has been given to associated facilities access, because while it is in town and maybe folks can cycle home before anything else happens. What other consideration might we give to make sure that that we're planning for the future contingencies of things like what could be a blight on the community rather than an asset.
Yeah, Leanna, thanks for that. I do appreciate that. All of the pilot projects except for the one that's on private property in the River Ridge Apartments, if that one does indeed get to the finish line, are in or near public parks that have bathroom facilities. But I would also stress that the one advantage here is that we are in the urban environment, and presumably many people will be riding from their homes not too far away. So they will hopefully be able to contain it till they get home.
That's always the hope, but
But I know there's days. So and there's all those breweries that people will reward themselves with at the end of the ride. They all have bathrooms.
Randy?
Yeah, so we might need a wayfinding plan for some of that too, because the fact that a restroom might be close by and someone's knowledge of that restroom, it might be two different things. So we make sure that, I'm sure wayfinding is a huge issue. So I know in our initial presentation that it was very ambitious to start. The timetable was very ambitious, and there was no money or very little money allocated for this. And I know you said that they aren't allowed right now, that the partners aren't allowed to do fundraising until you have neighborhood meetings and that. So I'm wondering how that's going, because I know the projects weren't very expensive. When you think about a trail project, it wasn't like $3 million a mile or whatever it is, or $6 million, whatever it is now, depending upon if you're in the West French. Anyway, but there's still a significant amount of money that was accounted for, and an ambitious timeline. How's that working right now? Because if we aren't raising money, but we want to start working on things soon, and it just seems like there might be an issue there.
Well, believe me, our funding partners would love to be raising money from about last year, but we did make the decision as a group that they would hold off until we felt like we've done enough outreach and are prepared to call this a real project from the city's point of view, at least. And so I can't remember exactly the total amount for all 5 of these projects, but it is about $1 million to be able to build all of these projects in one swoop. And that does include signage and wayfinding in that. There'll also be a big web page presence with that, which will tell people where to park, how to act, as good neighbors through the neighborhoods that you have to go through, where the bathrooms are, all of those kind of things. So it is a great value for the money that needs to be raised. We're also asking for the partners to provide the amount of money that we would need to maintain the trails for 3 years as they get established, and then the possibility of re-upping that again after the 3-year period. So that's where we're at, like just getting our heads around what the financial issues are. But they aren't raising the funds except for that one grant application they had to get in. They are talking to some big donors in town now, preparing for the possibility of receiving funding when they are ready for that. But you can't put the cart before the horse. Everything needs to be properly in place, especially the public engagement part. So it's not going to happen this year. It might be the springtime before we see construction, and that might be an optimistic timeline still. But I do think once they do start the fundraising, it's probably going to be a popular campaign. I hope I answered your question right, Randy.
I just think, some of the timelines that we saw initially was starting construction in the summer, this summer, in the early fall, and it just seemed unrealistic that all the pieces will be in place at that point in time. So yeah, that helps to have a better idea in terms of next spring at the earliest, just because there was a lot of excitement over this, and because the way people were presenting it initially, it made it sound like it was almost happening now. And so if that's the public expectation, then we just need to reframe that appropriately, so that people can still be excited about it, but also understand it's not going in now. So.
All right. I was just kind of thinking on Pat's comment. Are we posting those neighborhood meetings on the Asheville Unpaved site? Or do we kind of know when those are happening? How would people find out about those, the neighborhood ones that are happening, the 3 or 2 or 3, whatever you were mentioning?
So we're not broadcasting our meetings with the neighborhoods because we want to keep them as neighborhood meetings. But so we rely on them to get the word out through their neighborhood.
Okay.
At this point.
And then we're going to have a series of public, citywide public meetings.
That's correct.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
I hope to see all of you there.
Yeah, I've attended a couple of these, and it does seem really exciting. And when you talk about it with just people, everyone seems very excited about the whole project. So can't wait for it to get rolling. Everyone else good? Excellent. Thank you, Lucy.
You bet.
All right. Our next item is the update on the Biltmore repaving and bicycle lane project. Jessica.
Thanks, everybody. So, guys probably saw some of the press release information that came out last week, but I just wanted to let everybody know that we have decided at the moment to not install bike lanes on Biltmore between Patton and Hilliard as part of the DOT's project, which does not mean that we're not planning to do bike lanes in that section in the near future. But what we want to do is phase it in a way that with the DOT project, with their restriping, we'll make some loading zone improvements and do some evaluation of that to see how that goes. And then have some additional public engagement around the bike lanes. Specifically, I think that we might be able to show maybe one more option or two options. The fact of the matter is that if we wanted to add bike lanes or anything for that matter, you have to take something out of there, whether it be parking or a vehicle lane. So there's not a whole lot of options to be considered when it comes to adding bike lanes to that roadway, but we want to be able to extend the conversation with the stakeholders in that corridor as well as the broader public. So we put that information out to the stakeholders. And when I say stakeholders, I mean mostly business owners, but also residents in that corridor. And then we also put the information out via press release. But, just to assure you guys and everyone else, that does not mean that we're not still committed to doing the project. And in fact, the city manager was pretty clear and direct that this is a project that she wants to see happen, that we just needed to break it into a couple of pieces here and try to focus on loading first and then move forward with a bike facility project. And this has no bearing on our plan to move forward with the College of Patton bike lanes. We are working on the final design for that, the final striping plan for that. And we'll be working with the consultant on that to also put together the signage plan and get that out to bid. So that's my update. The story has not ended yet for Biltmore, but that's where we are as of now.
Thanks, Jessica. Pat?
I just wanted, Jessica, I just wanted to clarify that sounds like the repaving is just from Hilliard to Patton. And that's why you're stopping it. You're not doing it then because it doesn't really go anywhere.
Well, so Merriman is, NCDOT is repaving all of US 25. So Merriman, then Broadway, then Biltmore, all the way down to Southside. And so we were looking at the section of Biltmore between Broadway and Patton because there is some, what I'll say is a additional curb to curb width, cross-section width. And so we had been having the conversation with the community about reconfiguring some of that to include bike lanes, which would mean taking away one of the two southbound lanes.
And would you, are you going to be using permanent painting, or is this something that could be readily updated within a few years? Because you have paint and then you have the thermoplastic stuff.
Right. My understanding is that DOT is using paint and not thermo. So theoretically, we should be able to grind it off and restripe everything. Not the ideal preferred method, but it's something that we've used before.
Randy?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself there. So I think you probably anticipate that I think it's bad. We should not delay the bike lane. And there's so many reasons why we shouldn't do it. I mean, the safety, equity, NCDOT policy, and even legal reasons. And first of all, NCDOT, we've tried to work with them, and the city's doing a great job. And they're such a better place right now with NCDOT than we have been for a long time. But trying to get them to just do their complete streets policy, which they disobey all the time, but they're actually required. So I'm reading directly from the policy, requires NCDOT planners and designers consider and incorporate multimodal facilities in design and improvements of all appropriate transportation projects in North Carolina. And they don't do that. We struggle to get them to do that. And this is the situation, my understanding is that they're willing to do it on this little teeny section of this, which they should be doing it over a much bigger area. And the only way that they are not supposed to do it is if a multidisciplinary complete streets review team says that it's not going to happen, or if the local government says they don't want it. So they're willing to put this in. And now we're saying, don't do it, which seems a horrible precedent to set. We say as a city, we have a Vision Zero policy, although we do nothing with it whatsoever, but we're the most dangerous city for pedestrians in North Carolina. And this is a chance to take a small, really small step away from being the most dangerous city and meeting a little bit of our Vision Zero goals. And again, we're not doing that. Having a connected bicycle network is one of the top priorities of this committee, Multimodal. We decided this last year, we looked at our top priorities, and this helps, it's again, a very, very small section, take a step go towards the connected bicycle network. Right now, people use that second lane illegally to unload, to use it as a loading zone. And so that's dangerous. And, not only dangerous, but also illegal. And we're basically encouraging people to continue to do that. Who's being affected by this? A lot of people, certainly, but who's just south of this project? The Maple Crest Apartments, formerly Walker Heights, the biggest public housing complex in Nashville. The new 319 Biltmore is going to be an affordable housing aspect project too. Again, right there. And a lot of people are very close, a little bit too far maybe to walk downtown, but easily could bike, and facilities would help them to do that. And we're denying them the opportunity for this. It seems to me the only people, you read in the paper, 81% of the people vote poll wanted this, a very small percentage still didn't want it, and people that didn't want it were some of the people who were saying that the loading zones are being affected. But every one of these businesses that built hotels or signed a lease on a business there, knew what the loading zone requirements were when they moved in. So the hotels there and stuff weren't like, I don't know what to do for loading. No, they had a plan. They had to plan for this. They knew what they're getting into when they did this. And then now they've adapted the plan of parking illegally and blocking traffic and using that as a loading zone, which is illegal again. And they knew that they weren't supposed to do that when they bought into this thing. So it's not like something new, like we're telling people, hey, this loading zone you've had for all this time, you can't have it anymore. No, we're just saying you can't do something that was illegal in the first place. So, it's not like we can say that we're taking anything away from them. We're not. Actually, we're making it better because, like you said, you're designing loading zones to help make it easier for them to load and unload. So all we're doing so far is making this easier for the hotels and every other business that's being affected here, something that they're not getting otherwise. And so there's no reason why we can't put a bike lane in at the same time, because putting the bike lane doesn't detract from any of that. If we take away a lane of traffic, all we're doing is not allowing them to do something that's illegal anyway, and something that they didn't agree to when they, again, built their hotel or signed their lease on the building. None of them were saying, I'm only doing this because I get to block traffic in the traffic lane, illegally park, and load and unload. So it doesn't seem to me that there's any good reason for us not to put the bike lane in now. I don't see it. We're not doing our job. We're not representing our citizens. We're representing a couple businesses who are mad they can't illegally park and use that lane as a bike lane, as a loading and unloading zone. That's the only people we're inconveniencing with this. That's, from my understanding, the only people who are creating any kind of a stir, and it's a small percentage of the people who are responding to the need to put in these bike lanes. So it doesn't seem to me that there's any reason we should not put bike lanes in now.
Here, here.
Ditto.
I agree. It's hardly any paint.
John?
So, Jessica, I appreciate the pause in a sense to evaluate the project and make sure that it's safe and that it works. But my question is why wasn't this looked at? Why wasn't there an engagement earlier on in the process? I guess like when we were talking about the college patent, why were we not looking at Biltmore at the same time? Because I feel like maybe this could have been addressed at that time, as opposed to waiting until the 11th hour. I mean, it's like, I really appreciate, I think I like to do things right. And I like, as much as I support bike lanes, I also want to make sure that the bike lanes are installed in a way that it's safe for everybody, both the cyclists and the cars, and also being respectful of the businesses downtown, because there's a lot of commerce that happens downtown. So it's like, I want to, like, I see all points of it, but we really do need to have bike lanes downtown. So like, I guess in the future, I mean, because we're putting pause, like the city's, hitting the pause button on this. How do we avoid this situation in the future? Like when we're doing a repaving project, how do we get on this, get ahead of it so that we don't end up in this situation where people are really upset? Because it's like right now, it's like we're pitting business owners and, citizens against each other, which is like not productive in my opinion. I just would like, I think we want, what's best for the city. And I think the bike lanes are really what's best, because if we have, a better network of bicycle lanes, we can get more cars off the road, right? So it benefits everybody. But like, I guess I'm just concerned about like how this got pulled now and like why we didn't get ahead of this before. So you can maybe speak to that.
Well, the quick answer is lack of staff. We just didn't have the staff capacity to put the best and proper time in on public engagement for this. And Merriman really sucked up a lot of the resources that we had, because it's all the same project, right? So the Merriman conversation was, for better or for worse, the one that we prioritize a lot of our resources towards, and like trying to make a concerted effort of public engagement and analysis and all of that jazz for that portion of the repaving project. So it really impeded our ability, I think, to start the conversation on the other section. And then also, I think, like, naively, perhaps I personally thought that it was not going to be as troublesome from a stakeholder, from a business standpoint. I think that when DOT is typically the hurdle to get over when it comes to talking about a lane reduction, and when DOT was not the hurdle for this section of road, I think we unfortunately thought, well, then maybe we're good to go, and I think that was just a naive mistake on city staff's part. So when it started to get to like reality, like this is moving forward, this project is going to happen, we started to do a little bit of outreach on it, and we're, of course, learned that DOT wasn't going to be the hurdle for it. It was going to be more of the directly impacted businesses. And so I've been very upfront with those folks that we really should have gotten out in front of and had these conversations with them a lot sooner than we did. And so that's really, I think, the part that has driven the decision to phase it. I can't promise you nobody knows for sure. Like, if we had done 6 more months of outreach, would it have changed people's opinions? I don't know. But we're going to at least provide that opportunity more so now, and then, move forward ultimately with a project.
Thank you. I mean, sorry. I wanted to follow up, and actually I lost my train now, so I'll let Maggie go.
I guess I just am like, every time someone adds something, I'm like, I feel that so much. I hear you. And so I think this is like, I'm glad that we're having a conversation where everyone's bringing our thoughts. And I really appreciate, Jessica, how you're just being really frank. Like, again, I have been in your desk, and there's just so many times that the woman power to pursue all the opportunities just isn't there, and it sucks and it's disappointing. And there's something about this situation that still just feels off to me. Like, I know that, sure, in an ideal world, we would have had more time to do community engagement, but like on our last call, y'all shared the business surveys. There were 12 respondents. We have 94,000 citizens. Something about that just feels really wrong from a democracy standpoint. Like, this is a heartbeat of our town. This is a major connection. We would never build a road without with a mile of it missing, and we're doing that for bicyclists, and so it just still feels really lopsided. So say maybe I'm even wrong on that number. Maybe it wasn't 12. Maybe it was 37. Like, we had 4,000 citizens participate in the Merriman survey. So something just feels really, really broken in a democratic participation standpoint. If 37, 57, 11, like, that's not representative of our community. And to have it go directly in contrast with thoughtful plans that we have made policy commitments to, I'm just really unsatisfied with the fact that the city has already made a decision, and that decision is to basically punt when a financial opportunity to do this is like totally nowhere to be seen. So it's like maybe in the future, but like punting doesn't actually make me feel reassured that it's going to be done because of lack of resources. And I know that's not on you, that this is a broader organization decision, but I just feel like I need to say it. It's just like, what? Is this how it works? This doesn't feel right to me.
I mean, I'm going to, just to continue to be frank, because that's the way I operate, and I think it's healthy to have frank conversations, but I mean, we did get a lot more comments, but you're right, like there's still a small subsection, and overwhelmingly the comments that we ended up getting were positive from people that don't live in the area, don't work in the area, don't own property in the area. And so the struggle always, no matter what project we're talking about, we could be talking about Memorial Stadium, we could be talking about Livingston Street, we could be talking about any project. And so it's always the question, broader community versus the most directly impacted. If we were talking about a project in a legacy neighborhood or historically Black neighborhood and said, well, we're going to ignore everything you just said because it's in Plan X, we wouldn't be saying that. So we have to, that's our
business owners haven't been systematically disenfranchised for centuries. I get that. I don't know. I guess I'm feeling a little sensitive to that comparison, but so I'll let go of that comparison and hear your point that fundamentally operating in a community, whatever neighborhood it is, if it's directly impacting them and not others, is a major tension point for doing this work. And I recognize that. And it just sounds like within the context of resources, we had a huge win on Merriman, but that bandwidth for this one was what came off the plate. It's just, I guess I'm just really disappointed.
I think the other thing that is becoming more and more evident, at least to me, is the silo conversation. Multimodal is unanimously supportive, but I go to a different commission and it's the complete opposite. And there's not a whole lot of discussion or debate about any of it. So, you know, that's part of the equation as well, is like.
And I think, you know, we and our committee have been working to create that bridge commission on public space management for that exact reason. You know, we reached out to have the downtown commission work with, like, to collaborate. So I think in the goals that we set as a committee almost this time last year, we really see that. And, you know, there's still limitations. And I think what you're pointing to is part of why staff initiated the boards and commissions discussion, which has had flaws. But I think some of a fundamental trigger for the conversation that staff lifted up is the siloing. So I hear you. I hear you.
Pat?
I put my comment in the conversation, but I thought that the Biltmore McDowell would show that there was a lot of support. And like Maggie said, the whole Merriman shows that there's support. I'm really disappointed. And I think you already have support for this thing. How much more support did you need to have? Merriman just flooded it. And then you go around in the exact same project. It's like, why am I on this committee? I'm really disappointed with this decision.
John?
Yeah, I hear you.
Sorry, Jessica. John?
So I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I'm like a really big fan of making sure that you have everybody at the table. And I think that that's really important. If you want a project to be successful and you want the community to get behind something, you've got to have everybody at the table, which is why when we were discussing the college patent, I voted against that, not because I don't support bike lanes. Of course I support bike lanes, but it's just like, I feel like if you rush a process and everybody isn't involved, or at least everybody's voice hasn't had an opportunity to be heard, that you're not going to have a successful product. That's like not the way democracy works. Just because, like, if you owned, so say you own a house and on your street you have on-street parking, and somebody was going to take that parking away from you and you weren't going to be able to park there anymore. All right. And you don't have a driveway, because in a lot of these neighborhoods in Asheville, we have shared driveways or there are no driveways. So you have nowhere else to park. And you'd be really upset if your voice wasn't heard and you didn't have an opportunity to speak your mind. So I just feel like it's really important. It's like, I'm really disappointed that this didn't happen, but I'm also disappointed that we didn't get ahead of this and have the proper engagement. Like, this really probably should have been one. It shouldn't have just been the conversation about Merriman. It should have been like a holistic conversation to involve the entire stretch of I-25 or US 25 that was being resurfaced. So, but sorry, my kids have entered the room, so I'll be quick. But yeah, I do think it's really important to involve everybody, and I understand the value of hitting pause on this, because if you own a business and you rely on deliveries, like you've got to figure it out. So I'm gonna let you go because I've got to deal with this shit.
Thanks, John. Elizabeth?
Hi, yes. I am, just as a process question, because I'm new to this MMTC thing, how do we then convey to the city that, I mean, I don't know what the process is, especially if I know we have a liaison and you said Ronnie's schedule had changed. How does this work when we all are having this discussion about vehemently supporting one thing, but also wanting, more democracy, for a quick way to do this? How does that work? How does this then go back to the city and say, this is sort of why we exist? So how does the MMTC?
Yeah, and Jessica, you can respond for a second. Just to be clear, Kim will watch 100% of our meetings, and she's going to follow up wherever. I'm sure she's listening right now and taking notes on this exact conversation. She is still absolutely plugged in. It's just a conflict of timing. So she's still plugged in, but Jessica, if you could kind of follow up on the other side of things.
Thank you.
Yeah, so another kind of different, unfortunate or not, for this particular, I'll call it this, being a separate project than Merriman, even though it's all happening under DOT as part of the same thing, is that there's no, to add bike lanes in this section through the DOT project would not have required any money, does not require any money for the city, because they got to restripe it somehow. With the Merriman section, it actually did require some money from DOT, because it would also necessitate some changes to the traffic signals. And so DOT asked the city to provide the funding for that piece of it. And that was because money was involved and it was over a certain threshold, it actually required the city council to weigh in, vote, and budget that money. This, on the other hand, didn't need to go to council because there was no money associated with it. We weren't going to have to help pay for it. So because of that, it became a city staff / city manager decision. And so what city staff did was we basically compiled all of the feedback that we got, including from you guys, from the Downtown Commission, from the Asheville Downtown Association, from all of the public and business owners. And we put together all of the information and talked with the city manager and decided as a staff level and a city manager level how to proceed. So it depends, I guess, on what the situation is. But you guys are advisory board to council, but you're also an advisory board to staff. So we use all of the input and all of the information to make the decisions. But we also had, referenced all of the plans that say that this should be done, including the Biltmore McDowell plan, downtown master plan, Asheville in motion plan, like our complete streets policy. There's a whole lot of plans that say this supports this action. And that's why the city manager is very directly stating, we plan to do this project. We plan to put bike facilities on this roadway. We're just going to have some more conversation with the business owners and take some time to evaluate hopefully we get some good improvement out of loading, and maybe that will change some of the business owners' feelings about the overall project. Or it may not. We'll see.
Elizabeth, did that answer your questions?
Yes, it did. It did.
Okay. Randy?
Liam, were you ahead of me? I don't want to take your spot if you're ahead.
I was earlier, and then I unhanded, and then I rehanded myself.
Oh, okay. All right. So I don't think.
Go ahead.
Wait, sorry. I'm gonna go then. If you unhanded yourself. So.
Go ahead.
It seems to me like though we did get input, and we're taking that. We're not. It's not like we invite people to the table. We invited people to the table. A few business owners said that they have an issue because of the loading zones, and we're addressing that. We're giving them something they don't have now. Right now, they shouldn't be parking on that second lane. They should not be doing that. If we had better enforcement, we'd ticket them and we'd stop them from doing it, but we don't. So that's the only thing we're taking away. We're giving them loading zones, which they probably need more of. But again, whenever they leased that space or bought those hotels over to, they agreed to use the loading zones that were there. They weren't getting the right to use the street. That wasn't part of the bargain. So we're giving them to a lot already. So why can't we put bike lanes in too? Because we're getting them. We're solving their concern. I have a concern. I don't have a loading zone. We're giving them one. Here's a loading zone. You now can use this. You don't have to park illegally anymore in the middle of the street. So they're getting what they want. Why can't we get bike lanes too right now? There seems no reason why we can't do both. Because we're giving them what they want. We invited them to the table. Maybe it was late. Maybe they didn't get to stay as often as they wanted to. They said we want loading zones. Well, they said they want to park illegally still in the street, which is not okay. In any situation, that's not okay. So we're giving them loading zones. Here's a loading zone and a bike lane. It's a no-brainer. There's no reason to not put the bike lane in. None. Because we're giving them the loading zone. They're giving them what they wanted. They get it. They win. They win. They get the loading zone. Yay, it's a victory for the businesses. And we get a bike lane. There's no decision. It's restripe it, loading zone and bike lane. Everybody wins.
I have a question. And it's more about downtown residents. So I know there's the Downtown Commission, which is made up of both residents and businesses. Is that right? So if we exclude business owners, do we have a sense of downtown residents' perspectives on streets? No, we don't. We don't have just a snapshot of what it would mean for residents. Okay, so that was question one. And then I just wanted to validate what I think I heard you say a moment ago, Jessica, just for my own record. We're really talking about fiscal opportunity. So we have the opportunity for DOT to do the painting and the striping at no cost. And our city decision makers are saying, we still plan to do the project. We just plan to do the project at a time when there's more buy-in around the idea, and that will cost taxpayers later. So I think a good question that we should be asking, if I heard that correct, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the question we should be asking all citizens of Asheville is this the right fiscally responsible decision? if it's about swaying public opinion first so that we can take action that is palatable versus paying for the decision that costs us more in the long run. Like what's more responsible?
I don't know that I can answer that question. That's not really an objective question that I can answer. I will clarify though that we're not necessarily pausing putting them in to do it at a time when there's more support, because our intention is to continue to move the project forward after we have some more public outreach. But
do we
if
miss
there isn't,
do we miss the DOT window for, right?
Yeah.
So then who pays for it if we miss the DOT window?
The city does, but it's not a significant amount of money that we're talking about either. And that was part of the I'll say the decision making matrix, if you will, is that, you know, we also have this compressed timeline. DOT is going to be starting the whole repaving in the next several weeks. So that was putting pressure on it all. And then the amount of money overall that we're talking about, like if we come in and do it ourselves, is less than $50,000, which yes, that's $50,000. But when we're talking about, you know, transportation projects, it's not a impossible or crazy amount of money to find. So that also contributed to the decision that was made. You know, if it was $1 million or even $250,000, we probably would have made a different decision. We might have made a different decision.
John?
So, two more questions. Do you have a timeline for when this new engagement process will take place? And then, as far as restriping the street, repainting the street, is there already a plan for what would happen, or would that be part of the process that's like negotiated with these business owners or residents downtown?
To answer your second question first, part of the engagement would determine the plan. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, okay. So, you know, one of the things that we could potentially look at as an option that wasn't really talked about with the stakeholders was, would a uphill only bike lane and a wider parking loading lane be better than 2 6-foot lanes next to very narrow parking lanes? Either way, you still have to take a vehicle lane out. So, you know, there's other options that could be potentially looked at, but they all have something that has to be removed. So we might end up at the same place that we began, which is with the proposed restriping that we had, or it could change potentially based on public input. And so I think as far as when we do it, I think we'll probably, after DOT goes through and finishes their project, we'll be reaching out and doing some evaluation of the I'll call it hopefully the success of the loading zone improvements. We can't really measure it. Like, there's not really a good way to measure because we don't have data on like how often somebody was double parking in the lane. So our hope is that we can get some qualitative data and information from business owners as to whether or not it's functioning better for them and if they think it's helped or not. And then after that, we'll restart the bike conversation.
So the loading zones, you're going to remove that southbound lane to put in the loading zone? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I don't think she's hearing you,
Can
John.
you hear me?
I can hear you, John. Jessica, can you
Okay.
hear? Hang on a second. Technical dip. I can't
John,
hear
I think they're restriping so that some of the parking becomes loading zone.
Let's see if Jessica is able to come back and get that question.
I think so she should be able to confirm this, but my understanding is that they are creating some legal loading zones. And that's why I think there's no reason why they don't put the bike lane in too, because they are improving the loading zone. Though again, what they're asking for, they're getting. They're not getting anything they're not asking for, other than the ability to park illegally. That's the only thing I'm asking to take away, is the ability to park illegally. But they're getting loading zones. So it seems ridiculous that we're not putting in the bike lanes, because they're getting what they want.
Yeah, Randy, you've got a really good point, because I mean, if NCDOT says that the data supports the transition, you know, if southbound traffic is really that high that we need 2 lanes, fine. But if they're saying it's not that high, and you can remove a lane, then you're right. We shouldn't be restricting.
I drive Biltmore Avenue every day, a couple times a day, because I work downtown. And the only reason that in my opinion, that southbound lane is needed is because of the loading zone, because the trucks park there. That's like really the only reason that extra lane is needed. Because if the trucks weren't there, you wouldn't need the lane. I mean,
John, do you want to ask your question again? I think, Jessica, can you hear us now? Okay. Can you ask your question again? I wanted to make sure that we get that clarification on what you.
So my question was, when you are putting in the loading zones, are you going to be removing the southbound lane, or is the southbound lane going to remain in place and you're just removing parking? Okay.
Yeah, the loading zone additions that we're talking about are making some longer, making ones that exist longer, and then adding some new ones, which in some cases are removing some on-street parking, but not every single one that we're adding required us to remove a lot of on-street parking. I don't have a total number of parking spaces that we're removing, but it's not significant. What I will say that I find interesting, just maybe on a semi-positive note, is that through conversations I have had with business owners about this project and about College Patton, the overwhelming concern was less about loss of parking or potential loss of parking, and more about loading issues, which in my professional past, it's always been about parking. Like, oh my God, you cannot take on-street parking away. I think there's been a shift in understanding about how we maybe don't need as much parking on street, but I could just be reading into it.
John?
So after talking through this and listening to, it seems like Randy is right, that really if parking spaces, or they're getting the loading zones and they're not removing that southbound lane, and it's not about safety, and it's, you know what I mean, and the business owners are getting what they're asking for, because that's really the reason is the loading zones, or they're not worried about parking, Are they worried about traffic being able to, like, are they worried about traffic backing up? Is that part of the issue as well, not just the loading zones?
Yeah, there's the common normal fears about road diets. So the loading, though, is, I think, the predominant concern, but then layered onto that is what I consider to be the common fears that you hear about all road diet projects: traffic and congestion, emergency services access. And, you know, we've provided information about why we don't think those things will be a concern. So, you know, we're not going to change our decision right now. Like, the timeline is just too small. I think, like, again, like, I don't disagree with you guys. Like, the city still thinks that this project is supported by all our plans and makes sense for all kinds of goals and objectives that the city has. But we're trying to make sure that we do the proper engagement process. So it is what it is.
I appreciate it's unfortunate. I appreciate it. Like, I do appreciate it, you know, but it's unfortunate that this is the way it worked out. But I mean, there's nothing we can do about this, but at least it's something that's, you know, supported by the city. So, you know, I think that's great. You know, but it is unfortunate, the timing, because it's going to cost taxpayers money. Even if it's $50,000, $50,000 is $50,000. You know what I mean?
Right.
That could be used for something else, you know? So it is unfortunate, but I do appreciate, you know, the engagement. So thank you.
Randy?
Sorry, this is just my last thing. So Jessica and I've worked now for a while together, and so I think she knows that I'm not disrespecting Jessica in any way with this. And so some of the new members might not understand. They go, well, Randy hates Jessica. No, not at all. I love Jessica. She works really hard towards us, and she does a lot of great things. She gets what we want. I do think this decision is absolutely wrong, and I think that we can respect that, and she knows it's not personal in any way, shape, or form, because I think she does fight for things that are right all the time. But this decision, I think, is just plain out wrong. And since so I always figure if we make a wrong decision, the next decision we have to make, it needs to be more. So I'll say right now, we need to go all the way down to South Street, right? That's the name I say wrong, but South Street, where the project is going to end here. We need to have bike facilities, not just share arrows, all the way down there. So if we're going to restripe this section, I think that needs to be in part of the conversation then. Because again, the Maple Creek Express Apartments in the 319 Biltmore, I mean, that's an underserved community who does not have access to cars. They should have access to downtown. And this is a connector to their community. And we're basically saying bikes are off the table, because unless you're an experienced cyclist, riding in Biltmore is scary as all get out. You know, my wife rides on the sidewalk to get to the hospital to work because she is afraid to be in McDowell, you know, and she won't ride Biltmore at all. So it's like, this is social equity. And so if we're delaying this, I'm just letting you know, I'm going to push hard to make, you know, to give access to everybody in our community to transportation, to access downtown. And so, again, this decision is wrong, I think, and I think we have a lot of agreement on that. But I think that if we're not going to get this now, we're going to reevaluate more of this, because before, a lot of times we didn't have Hilliard to South because it was too tight time frame, right? Now we got to open that time frame window. So I think that needs to be included now in the discussion. So just so you know, I think that needs to happen.
Thanks, Randy. Anyone else have any more? Jessica, I appreciate it. It's, you know, just as Randy said, it's not, you know, you are really leaning into all this, and it's a heck of a storm coming at you, and I appreciate it.
I don't take any of it personally. Yeah, I understand. I understand where everybody's coming from.
Yeah. You know, it looks like, I mean, when I think about the road, I think about this change would essentially mimic the conditions on Broadway, or the same road just north of Patton. So that already exists there. That and traffic is able to move through. I don't know what the counts are from the intersection, but I would imagine most of that traffic is moving through that way. So I feel like it's not something where we don't have the data. And to John's point, or someone brought it up about the NCDOT having the numbers and being comfortable with it. What's the timeline for the bike paths on Patton? And is there a way that we can get comfortable with this installment and then make the adjustments when those bike lanes go in?
I can't, it's possible, maybe. If it's, I can't answer that question right now. I might know a little bit more later. I mean, it's possible that we could combine them, but and we would have to do the public engagement for Biltmore within the next few months. I don't know. I need to think about it. I need to think about the timing. I don't want to hold up one. I don't want to hold up the College Patton one any longer than I have to try to squeeze this one on it too. So just sort of thinking through that in the moment, my thought process is no, probably let's not combine them and postpone.
Okay. And maybe it's just, I was just kind of thinking like timing wise, if we can kind of get it in there, because I do feel like that connection really helps that flow of the bike traffic, the traffic. So I really like that ability to kind of, give people an outlet there. So, and then we've covered on the cost. So it's, it is, where we're at on that. Do you feel like there is an opportunity to, what's the reasonable time frame? I know I don't want to put you on the spot again, but is it like a 6-month thing where we feel like, okay, the trucks are getting in and out, we have these new loading zones, when can we start harassing you again?
I think it's probably likely to be a budget request for next fiscal year, which seems like a really long time from now, but we're literally talking about starting the next budget process again here in the next month. And so it's likely, in my opinion, it'll be budgeted next July 1.
Right. We can add it to future projects as well on our list, so we can kind of keep an eye on it.
And I'm not saying that's like absolutely what will happen. If we can do some additional public engagement and find $50,000 or whatever it is, we could potentially do it earlier. Probably wouldn't be significantly sooner because of winter. Like we can't lay down new stripes and stuff during certain temperatures. So it's possible it could be sooner than next budget year, but it might end up being next budget cycle.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Anyone else have any other comments or questions?
Yeah, right. Jessica, it's just going to get harder and harder. The more bike lanes you build, the more people are going to want them. If I can get down to Aston Street on a bike lane, I'm going to want to get down to Hilliard. And if I can get down to Hilliard, I'm going to want to get down to the hospital. So
yep,
be ready for more and more demands placed on the city. But thanks for your ongoing commitment to bike lanes in Asheville.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I came here, was to like get more bike lanes here. So I just need to change the 98% of the population that don't think it's a good idea.
One by one. Okay, the next section is unfinished business. Do you want to just kind of pick anything out there that you wanted? Is there any updates that we want to see there?
I wish I had something, but I don't think I do.
Okay, I'd like to go through and get some committee updates this month if we could, since we have a little bit of time here. Can we get an update?
Can I just ask real quick too? So I know one of the things that's holding up the bike share study was hiring another planner. And so do you have a status on hiring another planner?
Yes. So good news and bad news. Good news is that we now have 2 urban planner 2s. So Anna Sexton was just promoted to an urban planner 2 from a 1. And then our new person in the planning division is coming to us from the transit division. So some of you may know Haley Burton. She's been with the city for about 18 months or so, and she's been our transit projects coordinator. And so she's moving over to Lucy's division to be a planner, which the bad news means that I'm losing another person in transit. So now we need to backfill Haley's position. And so we have her old position going up on the job site on Friday. And we will hopefully get someone. I mean, it's going to take some time. We'll have to go through the whole process. And then Haley's going to, thankfully, I will still have Haley available to help train a new person on the transit related stuff. So that's the good news, and the bad news is we have a full planning division now, but we are now 1 short on transit. So it's going to be a little bit until Haley is able to fully put her transportation multimodal planning hat on and help with those tasks.
Okay, let's go and get some committee updates. Can we get an update from the transit committee?
So I was not at the last meeting, but maybe Jessica, I don't know if you have anything.
The only thing I'll just mention again is that our next transit committee meeting / multimodal meeting, so our September meeting will be that joint meeting on September 20th. You should have gotten a calendar invite from either from Haley or from Amy. And it's going to be from 3 to 5. We'll put together an agenda and send it out to everybody. But we'll probably be starting at the transit center downtown on Cox Avenue. We'll do a tour of that. We'll talk a little bit about future planning for the Talbert lot. And then we'll all get on a bus and take it over to the garage down the street and give you guys a tour of garage. So that's going to be our September meeting for both groups, just FYI.
Great.
And that, I have a question, because I've talked to a couple folks have asked, like, that's an open to the public meeting, just like our meetings are ever. And
Right.
So, friends, they're welcome. So maybe we could let our committees know, because I bet they would love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want everybody to be there. If people could tell me, I don't know how this would work, but it would be good to know generally if there are going to be extra people coming, then I can make sure we have 1 bus or 2 buses or whatever we might need.
Cool. I know of a +1.
Okay.
And I could email the 2 of you to connect.
Okay.
Excellent. Next, Greenway Committee. Kenny?
I missed the last meeting, so I don't know if Lucy's around yet, but I don't know.
On here anymore.
Yeah, Jessica, I don't know if you have any updates. Sounds like there's progress on the North Rad Tip project. So like the Riverside Drive corridor, consultant selections in process for moving that forward. Anna Sexton. Go, Anna, go.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't have the Greenway Committee meeting notes that I took from last meeting, but you've got it, Kenny. We're negotiating with a consultant for the North Rad Tip Greenway design and preliminary engineering project right now. It's going to take a minute to work through the NCDOT hoops and getting that before council and getting the go ahead. But that will be the section of Greenway that will connect from where the current Wilma Dykeman Greenway ends at Hill Street all the way up to Pearson Bridge Road. And then there's another NCDOT project that right now is still scheduled to be designed and constructed, and that will also go along Broadway from Hill Street. I'm sorry, along Riverside from Hill Street all the way up to Broadway. That will provide a multi-use side path adjacent to the roadway and bike lanes. So there will be a lot of multimodal improvements coming along that stretch of roadway eventually.
Excellent. Thank you, Alan. Elizabeth?
Anna, I have a quick question for you. And I know that a lot of the improvements have been done in the west and north side. Do you have any updates on when the Greenway will be the next phase that is connecting, where Amboy Road and French Broad River Park through Biltmore?
Oh, yes. I'm glad that you brought that up. So French Broad River West is essentially open. It may be still unofficially open, but it's getting a lot of use currently. And we are in the works to schedule a ribbon cutting ceremony, and that will be on Thursday, September 15th, I believe beginning at 4:30 p.m. Lucy and I are working on details for that right now, and we will get invitations, like formal invitations out to everyone, including the Multimodal Transportation Commission, so that you guys can join in and help us celebrate.
That's awesome. And the part I was actually asking about was the part that goes from the Amboy Road, Meadow Road intersection into Biltmore Village and across Swananoa River Road.
Okay. So that
connects all the south and east.
The Swananoa Greenway project that is currently it's the design project for the section from Thompson Street east to the Walmart area, Blue Tree Boulevard. We're at 90% design, I think, for that. And the city has construction funds, but is also applying for a TDA fund, a TDA Tourism Product Development Fund grant to get full funding for constructing that mile of Greenway once the design is complete. So that's moving forward too. Go ahead.
The section that you're talking about, that is, I think, would be a DOT project for when they redo Meadow Road. And I don't know the timeline on that at the moment. And things are kind of shifting too with the STIP because there was a huge budget shortfall. And then they filled it with some sales tax. And so some things are coming back in. And so I don't know about that part, Elizabeth. I don't know about that section.
I knew it was a state thing because of Highway 81. That's why they put it on that side of the river instead of on the Thompson Street side. But
right.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks, both of you.
Yeah. And then one other thing, the bridge, the Amboy Road Bridge, DOT's project to make some, I'll call them interim improvements to try to improve that crossing. That is scheduled to be let, I think they said pretty soon. And, it's not going to make things perfect, but it's going to make it a little bit safer for people biking and walking across that bridge. And so I think that will be, they're going to get back in touch with us actually in the next couple of weeks, because that will require there to be when they do those improvements to Amboy Road Bridge, they're going to be doing, they're going to have to do some closure, like a one lane closure, and have like alternating traffic situations. So they want to coordinate that and make sure that public, that the public knows that's going to happen. So I think based on what they've said, it's going to happen this fall, like sometime in the next few months.
That's outstanding.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great. Okay, next is bike ped, Randy.
Yeah, actually, too, on the Amboy Bridge, my understanding is that it's going to be open to pedestrians and bikes the whole time, too, during construction. So they're trying to make sure that's a priority. So it might be alternating car traffic back and forth, but bike peds are supposed to be able to still access that. And it's going to go from the 3-foot, it is now that wide curve, to, I think, a 5-foot access way. So it's still not great, but better than it is now because it's being used no matter what. So it'll be a welcome improvement there. Yeah, and one of the things, so on the Meadow Road too, the city agreed to take over the cleaning of the shoulders on Meadow Road that they made wider in exchange for striping it as a bike lane. So I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but that's supposed to be coming sometime soon. So it'll be actually officially striped as a bike lane at some point in time. But of course, then you get caught in the bridge over the railroad tracks, and so always more pieces. But hey, every piece we can get is great. So bike ped, we're doing the bike counts, which we do each year, coming up the second week of September. And Till does these coordinating that like he always does. And so we confirmed again with the city that it's actually valuable for us to do that, and they said that they do get valuable stuff out of that. So that's great. And then the Walk Friendly Community award every 5 years, we go through a process of that. We're currently a silver walk level friendly community, which we question whether we justify the silver, but there's going to be more discussions though too on it. There's how that works, but it's supposed the best thing from this, in my opinion, is that we identify things that we can improve upon through this application process so that we can continue to make things better for us. And apparently most of the level award and the bike friendly community award system is based upon the plans that you have and the process going through to improve, not so much what the existing things are. So it's a looking forward process, which is great because we need to obviously have lots of things, and the GAP plan has been great to help us with figuring out more things we need to make us more friendly in that way.
Excellent, thank you.
I'm sorry. I did want to say too. We were going to have this month. The city DOT staff is going to come and talk to us about bike lane maintenance in a comprehensive way. So a discussion, not a report. But there's lots of growth encroaching on bike lanes. There's sewer grates that are placed incorrectly. There's pavement irregularities. There's businesses that don't clean up after themselves, and there's lots of debris in bike lanes. And so we were going to have that discussion with city staff this month, and Ken had a conflict, and so we had to bump it. And next month, I'm afraid I'm not going to be here. So actually, I'm unfortunately going to miss the next MMTC meeting as well. So we're going to have that discussion in October. So just that's still happening, and I really appreciate the city being willing to work with us on that on a collaborative effort, not just a report saying here's what we do, because right now there's a lot of issues with bike lane maintenance. But Ken has agreed to make this a discussion where we can figure out what we can do better.
Excellent, thank you. NAC update?
Yes. So the last meeting, we were talking about that there was a press release, and a bunch of the volunteer of the year has now been moved to quarterly sort of volunteer recognition. I don't know if anybody saw that, but we, for about 6 weeks, garnered some nominations and got 4. And so one is going to be chosen out of that. And so every quarter there's going to be nominations. Just make sure if you're working with somebody that's done a lot of cool things in one of your neighborhoods to find that form on the it's under the, I think it's in the Engage tab. I'm looking at my notes here. And our chair of the Neighborhood Advisory Committee wanted to know, and I don't know who would be the best person to ask about traffic on Sweeten Creek when apparently there's some Carolina Day construction and there's a lot more traffic. And she wanted to get an update from some staff person if there's going to be any traffic calming or speed bumps. You might know anything about that.
Speed bumps on Sweeten Creek? I doubt it. No, it's a DOT road.
Yeah.
So, but I I'd be interested to hear more about the construction issue.
They've been apparently blocking off sections of Sweeten Creek Road, which is now, because 26 is always nuts and everybody is, there's so much overflow traffic from 25. Now everybody's on Sweeten Creek, but they're regularly blocking off at least a lane for some construction. And it's, so people from that end of the
Making
zip
it
codes.
worse.
Yeah. And I just wasn't sure who to ask about that or.
Well, technically it would be DOT, but if you want to either send me an email with the information and the question and or the person's contact information who is asking you, I can connect with DOT on it.
Okay, thank you, Jessica.
Excellent. So please note our future agenda items that we have on our list. Our next meeting will be in person. Looks like we have a 3:30, 5:30 time on the agenda, so we'll get clarification on that. We'll also know we're going to meet. You're going to send us a note. That's all right.
Yeah, I think it's 3:30. Or yeah,
Okay.
3:30.
So we'll meet at the bus terminal. And then note our important documents, and we will see everyone in person next month. Any other comments or questions? All right, we're adjourned. Rebate of 14 minutes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Looking forward to seeing everybody in person.
It's
Thank
going to
you.
be so fun. I can't wait for it. Bye, y'all.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.